She just got it. Hi, Diana, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Good, good, good. Hey, Roberta.
Hello. Let's
Hi,
see.
Roberta.
Hi, Diana.
Roberta, Julie texted me and said she was going to be 15 minutes late.
Wait, you know what? I can hardly hear you, so I gotta adjust my audio. Sorry, new computer setup.
Gary and Jesse haven't signed in yet? Huh.
Okay, can you repeat, Greg, the question?
Julie texted me and said she's going to be 15 minutes late.
Okay. I think we're gonna have to wait because I don't think we're gonna have quorum. Will we?
We have Diana, yourself, me, and Andy, so yeah, we do.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Well, yeah, we should wait till 5. It's 4:59.
Jesse's on.
Okay, and Gary, I see.
Yeah, I don't can probably start as soon as you'd like me to start.
Gary, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Robert, I think we can go ahead and get started.
All right. It is 5 o'clock and on July 1st, I will call the Maunakea Management Board meeting to order. We have quorum, and for the record, those of us attending via Zoom, please raise your hand if you have anyone in the room with you. Seeing none. Please, for the record, indicate that all Zoom attendees were by themselves. And I would like to confirm with Greg and Nahua that there's no written or oral testimony scheduled for today.
That's correct.
All right, so we can now move to the approval of the minutes of the June 3rd meeting as circulated. Do I have a motion or any changes?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as circulated. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Unanimous approval. We will now move on to Kahuku report.
Okay, so before I get into Kahuku and the ED report, per rules as a sunshine body, I need to make a motion here right up front, and I've discussed this with Gary and Jesse and Roberta. As you know, there were 2 major announcements the latter part of last week. One having to do with the UKERT decommissioning and the other having to do with the OHA litigation. Since those were so late in being announced or released, they did not show up on the agenda under my executive director's report, and I would have wanted to provide you an update on those matters. So per the rules, according to Gary, I need to make a motion to ask the board if it's okay to add both a UCURT update and an OHA litigation update to the portion of the agenda under my executive director's report. These are informational matters only. There's no decisions or actions to be taken by the Maunakea Management Board on these items. I just want to make sure folks are well apprised of these matters. So I'll move to add those to my ED report, please.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Diana. Diana, second. All in favor of amending the agenda to add the two items under Executive Director's Report, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. So I would assume it would be D and E.
I'm actually going to make it A and B.
Okay.
The chair,
Take those matters up first.
Yes, yes. Right.
just for the record, the Sunshine Law requires 2/3 affirmative vote of all members to which the board is entitled. So just for the record,
Oh, yes, not unanimous.
the
Because
ayes
Julie's
were,
not here.
yeah, but the number of votes equal 2/3 of your total membership, just for the
Okay.
record.
So I will restate my comment that we have unanimous approval to amend the agenda as per those in attendance at the MKMB meeting. But we also meet the 2/3 requirement of all board members required to amend the agenda.
Is that the agenda, Roberto, or the minutes?
Agenda, because it's going to be part of today's meeting.
Okay,
The minutes were already approved,
right.
and that was for the June 3rd meeting. And is that clear enough?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for catching that, Gary. All right, so we will move to Kahukumana report, and then Greg, you can do your executive director's report.
Okay, thank you. So tonight, under the action agenda portion of our meeting, we'll be asking you folks to review the IRTF geotechnical testing project proposal. We reviewed that proposal with Kahukumana last week. And upon their review, they recommended for this body to go ahead and move forward with approving the project with no changes or amendments. Once again, we'll get into the details of that project, but that project is to do some geotechnical testing to help inform their development of an erosion control plan for their site. They actually went further to actually say they viewed the project as important to helping CMS understand the underlying geology of the summit region in general. That could help us address other erosion issues due to storm runoff and natural processes. We've reported in the past, most recently because of Hurricane or Tropical Storm Hone, that we did have some significant erosion issues, certain areas of the summit region that are going to have to be addressed. And so Kahukumana liked the idea of us understanding a little bit more about the geology of the summit area that could help us address those issues. So that was an item that we took up with them. The second thing is we did update Kahukumana on the potential impact of the proposed federal budget cuts to astronomy on Mauna Kea. Their concerns focused mostly on the potential impact to CMS stewardship programs and educational outreach opportunities or educational opportunities due to cuts in both UH and the MKO operational budgets, which we don't know what the impact is going to be yet. They're also concerned about what they noted, particularly on the NSF side, as significant cuts to their research grant programs. We discussed in general with Kahukumana some budget scenarios that CNS is developing to address different scenarios that may happen. And we emphasize to them, as we have been emphasizing to our employees, that preserving employees is a primary goal for us in all of these scenarios. Hopefully, we'll never have to get to that point, but if we ever do, or as we get closer to recognizing that we will have to make some changes, we definitely will keep this body apprised of those updates to the budget. The third thing we discussed at Kahukumana is that we updated them on the status of MKSOA's RFP to select a planning consultant to help them develop their management plan. We also presented or reviewed with them some of the work that we are doing at the Joint Management Committee level to support development of an overall transition plan. I'll talk a little bit more about some of these things later, but at the Kahukumana level, what we shared is that the management plan consultant has been selected, but no formal announcement will be made until their contract has been awarded. We understood that contract was supposed to be awarded before June 30th, but as far as we know, that has not happened. So they're still working on that. Nahua and I have been asked to work with MKSOA management on developing an overall transition plan that kind of maps out on a schedule and timeline all the different elements of transitioning responsibilities from UH to MKSOA. The development of their management plan is a major component of that, but that's not the only thing that we have to think through. As you know, we're working with, there's a working group working at looking at asset transfers, asset and liabilities transfers. There are issues around how do you transition employees. There's the need to emphasize, or we've been emphasizing the need to start to tee up discussions with the MKOs about new leases. There is the matter of an EIS that they will need to do and that the observatories are likely will have to do to secure new leases, and how those issues or initiatives interact, and various other components. So we're helping them think through all of those things and trying to map that out on a timeline with them. That process is starting to pick up steam. So I'm glad to say that it is something that progress is starting to be made, but we still have a lot of work to do. In our discussion with Kahukumana about the status of the whole transition, one of the things I focused on was their engagement with the planning consultant once that planning consultant starts their work. Nahua and I had a chance, as part of this work that we're doing with MKSOA, we had a chance to look at the work plan that their planning consultant has proposed and how that maps out over the next year and 3 months, something like that, year and 4 months. The first 90 days of that work plan is where their consultant team is going to be focused on doing their initial due diligence in getting up to speed on our master plan, our comprehensive management plan, our administrative rules, all of our policies, all of our programs, all of our operations. We anticipate that that will require quite a bit of engagement with our management team, which I've already briefed them and asked them to begin preparing for. What is unclear to us at this point is whether the consultants their consultants will have a need and or want to meet with the advisory boards. Maunakea Management Board, Kahukumana, and the Environment Committee. We are recommending that, but I don't know how that would plug into their plan. And so what that means is there may be a need, once that team is in place and they start their work, to schedule a special meeting or an extra meeting or two, I'm not sure, with Maunakea Management Board, so that they can get your mana'o on how the whole management regime that we have in place works, as well as what your role is. That would also be the appropriate time to raise the issue, to discuss the issue of what are the advisory group's ongoing role going to be in with MKSOA. Kahukumana is very much focused on that because they would like to know if they're going to be asked to operate in the same function and the same role to MKSOA once MKSOA gets up and running. And I know that's a discussion we have had, not for a while, but we've had here a little bit in terms of Maunakea Management Board. Nahua and I don't have any indication of where MKSOA is at relative to all of these advisory committees. But I would like to push to have that topic be part of this consultant team's initial engagement with all of us. And then the last thing, provided an update to them on his education and outreach programs for the last couple of months. I know that I have it listed under my ED report, but I'm gonna go ahead and cover it here because I think Kahukumana got pretty excited by the work that he's been doing. So I'm just gonna pull up one slide that Kaleo put together. Okay, can all of you see that? And all right. Let's see, can I go? Full screen here. Oops, did I lose it? Okay, there. So May and June were not super busy months, but they were fairly busy. Kaleo has organized and hosted a number of field work days. One included UH Hilo's what they call their IS 250 class. This is a class that introduces students to community issues, community leadership, a variety of different things that he's been working with them on. So they came up and did some work. Canada, France, Hawaii Telescope brought their staff up for a community service date. He's been doing some work with PTA archaeologist Lyle Ald, who we've now developed a relationship with, specifically in May around a project that this individual, Zach, would like to, is proposing. He wants to do some film documentary on the ads quarry. So Lyle Kaleo brought Lyle up to help sort of talk through some of the issues with permits and getting permission to go into the ads quarry to do the work that he wants to do. June, he hosted a number of youth groups, as you see there. And then he has some things that are coming up. We've been working hard to try to find Kaleo some additional help because as things have gotten busy, it's getting harder for him to just sort of coordinate everything on his own. So he was lucky enough to get awarded 2 local Kanaka interns. Both of them are full-time students at UH Hilo. They're both pursuing STEM degrees. I don't know exactly what fields there are. So they will be starting in July, next week, I think, on a part-time basis, to help him. And they also have, projects and research that they will be conducting as part of their, internship. Hawaii Community Health Center is coming up this Saturday. Richard Taft, is bringing up about, I think it's about 40 people, I forget, of his employees. Wally Lau from Kahukumana has been helping organize that. So we're looking to host that group. And while they're on site, not only will they help us with some field work, but they will also be briefing them on a number of things, educating them about our programs. And then Science Camps of America are due to come up later this month as well. So a number of different things that he's been busy with, and I wanted to make sure we shared that with you folks as well, because I know that education and outreach is important to Maunakea Management Board as well. So that concludes my report on the Kahukumana section. Is there any questions?
I just wanted to point out on that slide, Greg, that the two pictures of our stickers that we're developing for Hawaii Conservation Conference, just to as something to give, that's representative of Mauna Kea, something a little different than we've done in the past. So those are two that Kaleo has created. So we're
Yeah, I
fortunate
forgot
to
that.
have
Thank you.
that.
So Kaleo, along with our resource management team, will be attending the Hawaii Conservation Conference, and one of our resource management team members will actually be presenting a paper. And so while they'll be hosting or manning a exhibit booth in the exhibit area and educating people about the programs that we have up here. And those two stickers are giveaways that they've developed, Kaleo has developed for folks when they come to visit the table. Thanks for reminding me. Questions about Kahukumana? Okay, hearing none, if it's okay, Roberta, should I just go into my executive director's report?
Yes.
Okay. So as amended, the first item I would like to take up is the announcement last week of UCURT's decommissioning. I've asked Doug Simons from the Institute for Astronomy to join us tonight and to provide a little bit more background on sort of how this came around and came to be, and sort of what at a high level the next steps are going to be. Some of this was covered in the media release, but I thought it would be important for this group to be familiar with the project. As you know, once we get to the point where they submit a notice of intent to decommission, that will come to this body for approval. So Doug?
Okay, thanks, Greg. Good to be back. I have no slides, so I'll just do this freehand and happy to take questions at any point. As Greg mentioned, we released last Friday morning media notice indicating the decision to go ahead and decommission UCURT. That was privately broadcast to lots of folks, including the entire federal delegation, Board of Regents, MKSO board, our Big Island legislative delegation, et cetera. And came as a result of a lot of internal conversation within our Mauna Kea exec group, in particular, over many months, actually. Long story short, the decision is mostly driven by a lack of what I think is viable funding long-term for UCURT. And the reality that we have to face in terms of the anticipated increased costs and complexity of new leases for the existing observatories. And I couldn't see a viable way basically to advance UCURT beyond 2033, while at the same time wanting to complete the science mission for UCURT, which has been sponsored by the U.S. Naval Observatory for quite a few years. Essentially, that's a nearly all sky infrared survey at 4 different wavelengths. 2 of them have been 100% completed. The other two are sort of 25-30% completed. And we roughly estimate a couple of years to be able to finish out the entirety of that survey, which is driven by a range of astrophysical research and improving the accuracy and calibration of something called the celestial reference frame. A big word, but basically that is a spatial fiducial mostly defined by supermassive black holes at the edge of the universe that is basically used to as the ultimate reference for essentially all measurements of positions on Earth. A little detail, the universe has no absolute reference frame. It's all relative. So you might ask, what is the absolute reference frame? That is it. It's the celestial reference frame. Set up and defined internationally, but supported by the Naval Observatory. And that ultimately ties in all kinds of things, GPS being the most prominent sort of example of how we use that reference frame for positioning measurements. So I consulted with Naval Observatory in May when I was in DC one last time. So they're fully apprised of that. I'm hopeful we can sustain funding by the Naval Observatory to complete the existing science mission. Everybody should be well aware by now the federal government is in an odd state financially, and we have no guarantees of funding through the next couple of years. We just keep our fingers crossed we can have that funding to complete the survey. So having decided that we cannot sustain UCURT beyond 2033 and really justify the cost and complexity of a new lease, I decided that it made sense to go ahead and start the decommissioning process to essentially overlap the front end of what is notionally, say, a 5-year process, which is mostly about getting permits, probably an EA, going through community vetting, et cetera, before we actually get to any summit work itself. And then sort of 2 or 3 years into that, when the survey is hopefully done, we'll be able to actually get into the physical work up on the summit. And I would like to see the whole project done within 5 years. That's not a commitment. I can ask, occasionally how much time. A lot of us have sort of wet finger in the air estimates. 5 years is what's needed. So end of decade. So what we intend to do on short order is to submit the notice of intent to this body for your consideration. And in parallel with that, issue an RFP to recruit a contractor, general contractor, who will work for the University of Hawaii and take overall responsibility for the project. That will be an IFA procurement, working in close collaboration with CMS and keeping Maunakea Stewardship and Oversight Authority Board well informed at every step of the process, like we did with CSO, basically. A early deliverable for that general contractor will be, in fact, a detailed schedule all the way through site restoration. And at that point, I'm going to be in a position to comment in more detail about the exact steps and a final schedule that we'll all sign up to try and to work towards. We will go ahead and proceed down that road. Details aside, UH, like any other telescope that has responsibility for their facilities, is responsible for financing this. And we will work within UH Manoa in particular to identify the resources to make that happen. I expect this to take a significant fraction of my attention and the remainder of my time as IFA director. As a side note, we have Andy Adams in here who's spent a good chunk of his career supporting UCURT. We are old timers. UCURT was commissioned in 1979 along with RTF and CFHT. And I performed roughly half of my PhD research on UCURT. I took no joy in this decision. But the reality is we have some hard decisions ahead. I felt it best for those practical reasons to go ahead and announce now and start the process. This also means that it gives a bit more clarity in the shared cost analysis that will be needed by the other telescopes as we work through our lease negotiations. We now have a little bit better focus on which ones will go forward and which ones will not with this decision. So that's kind of in a nutshell what was the summary of lots and lots of consideration over the past many months. And I'm happy to take questions on any of that.
I have a question, Doug, for reference. Comparing the UCURT facility to, the CSO that just got decommissioned, are the Are the structures about the same size?
Eucharist consists of considerably more physical material to remove. It's sort of a mid-scale size facility. So I expect it to require more time, more trucks, things of that sort. It's not a huge project like CFHT or KEC would be, where there's a much, much larger scale structure. But I think everybody should be prepared for a bigger project in terms of deconstruction work than CSO, and therefore larger costs as well in this whole process. So that will be part of the early analysis to figure out how much it's actually going to cost.
And if I'm correct in understanding, so the whole decommissioning process needs to be funded by IFA?
And funded by from, it could be different pots of money within I don't want to get into details, but more generally, I'd just like to point out that each observatory under their lease agreements are committed to sponsor their own decommissioning. And this is a owned telescope, and will sponsor the decommissioning activities.
Oh, okay. So after the United Kingdom pulled out, was it United Kingdom and on a joint basis that built it?
No, UK, I forget the name of back then in the 70s, the UK,
STFC.
still STFC back in the 70s.
Oh, it might be something.
Yeah.
SRC.
Oh, yeah, okay. I never heard that acronym in a while, yes. Short answer is this was a UK sponsored observatory.
Right.
And UK, when they joined ESO, sort of long story short, withdrew from their Maunakea assets. And took over, including ownership and title to UCURT and JCMT a little over 10 years or so ago. And has since then basically partnered with different sponsoring entities to operate those facilities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Doug, do you have a ballpark at this point of what it would cost?
It'll be more than CSO, which is about $6 million.
When do you expect to have a reasonable estimate?
Within 3 to 6 months, I think we'll have a schedule and a budget to start to work against it.
Maybe you could note that when United Kingdom pulled out, they did contribute towards some decommissioning, future decommission.
That's right. Yeah, there was a contribution made to for the decommissioning of both JCMT and UCURT. Throughout this whole transition period, I anticipate following the example set by CSO in terms of our ongoing contributions. There's a shared infrastructure decommissioning contribution that needs to be made as well.
Right.
I think CSO made a lot of important precedents.
Right.
That I think were overall quite good. So my going in is to follow the CSO examples of how we're going to maintain our commitments throughout this whole process.
So the naval research piece was only there to basically fund operations then once once took over.
Yeah, there was a transition period there as well, just not long after took over, but for the most part, it's been U.S. Naval Observatory, and they have sponsored the staffing required to operate UCURT and quite a bit of maintenance and equipment that you need to replace from time to time to keep everything operational. So the Naval Observatory has been a good partner.
You're right, right.
It's a good data product. They're using WIFCAM to generate what I think is going to be a very useful database that will be publicly available. So a lot of astronomy is going to come out of UCURT well downstream by this whole process.
How long more will UCURT be operational before active decommissioning starts?
Very notionally, a couple of years. It depends on the weather, literally, and engineering downtime that's required to keep UCURT going. That assumes the funding is available for the duration of this completion of the survey. But, so wet finger there a couple of years. When we get the actual decommissioning schedule, which won't necessarily build into it the time required to complete the astronomy survey, we'll do our best to synchronize those two so that we wind down operations no later than the time required to actually start physical site work on the summit. I've told the guys just get going as fast as you can to complete the survey. Put it that way.
Oh, boy. Thank you for the information, Doug. Yeah, very helpful to understand the various players and then, pots of money. So in other words, there is some money sitting in a decommissioning account that has been there for 10 years then, right?
Yeah, give or take, it's been an account managed by UH.
Okay.
It was
Partial offset.
Yeah, exactly. We've learned through CSO in particular that it costs more than we expected in the early days to decommission these facilities. But that's a UH responsibility, like I said, to take care of what additional funds might be necessary beyond what's been contributed by the Brits.
Other questions for Doug? Okay, if not, thank you, Doug. Really appreciate the update. I'd like to move on to the second item that we did add under my executive director's report. And that is the announcement last week that OHA was dropping two lawsuits against the university and the state and MKSOA. I've asked Jesse if he would provide a bit of background here for this group, just in terms of reminding you what these were about, what these lawsuits were about, and how we got to this point, because it's been, the initial lawsuit was going on since 2017, so it's been a long time. So Jesse, turn it over to you, please.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So there were two cases where OHA was suing the state of Hawaii, Board of Land and Natural Resources, and UH. The first was the lawsuit that Greg mentioned in 2017 that was filed. We call that the quote unquote mismanagement case because that's where OHA was claiming there was mismanagement of Mauna Kea. And early on, there was basically two counts, and one count was dismissed related to contract damages. OHA had alleged that they were a party, and the court said, well, you're not a party to the contract. So really, that litigation was looking at prospective damages from quote unquote mismanagement that had to be proved. So that case was sort of ongoing since 2017. And then in 2024, OHA filed a lawsuit, and in that case, that they were challenging the constitutionality of Act 255, which created the MKSOA, and is the timeline that Greg's working on with MKSOA about transitioning all of the stewardship to the MKSOA by 2028. So they were challenging that in 2024, and so that case was ongoing. Last week, OHA had announced after a Board of Trustees meeting that they were going to withdraw from both of those cases. There wasn't any testimony at that meeting before or after they went into executive session. And the chair of OHA, Chair Kahele, former senator, read a statement into the record about how essentially, it's in the news release, you can read it, but it's about moving forward and working with, he said, the governor and MKSOA about management on Mauna Kea for Native Hawaiians. So what we need to do now is next steps. is, the university is a party. So we just looked at some stipulations on dismissing the case, because at this point in the litigation, all the parties need to agree. So I think the states agreed, the universities agreed, OAS agreed. And so that documentation is going to be filed with the court soon, and that'll officially end those two lawsuits. The parties agree that any costs and fees are going to be covered by each party. So that's what that is. We have two cases that are still ongoing related to Mauna Kea, just FYI. This doesn't involve OHA, but one is the Flores Ohana versus University of Hawaii, and that's where they're challenging the rules, the Mauna Kea rules. It's a facial challenge, so they're challenging what the rules say on its face versus as applied. So that's being challenged still. And we have, there's a matter with TMT about start of construction that's before the Board of Land and Natural Resources that's being considered and under advisement by the BLNR. And that's all the litigation I'm aware of with universities involved at this current point.
I think that's enough. Any questions for Jesse on the OHA matter?
Was this a unanimous vote, Jesse?
Yes, I watched the meeting where OHA deliberated, and it was unanimous. Well, whoever was present, they all voted yes.
Jesse, regarding the Flores lawsuit, once the transition is completed to MK does that lawsuit become null and void at that point?
I would say so. Under Act 255, the section of the law that gives us authority, the University of Hawaii, to pass rules, is revoked. So we're not going to have authority on 2028. So the rules go away by operation of law.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we've raised that point, but that case hasn't been withdrawn.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jesse?
Well, I just have a question. So Jesse, on the lawsuit about the starting construction, that I guess was a lawsuit against the BLNR. Where is that, or is anything going on, or are they just sitting on it?
Yeah, that was an administrative matter, so it's not a lawsuit. It's a contested case brought by some of the parties who believe that under Condition 4 of the TMT permit, that how the start of construction was determined, they're arguing it was wrong. And so with TIO's counsel and the university, we argued that was correct. And it's all briefed on the record. They heard the case, but they've taken all of our proposed findings of fact, conclusion of law from all the parties. And they currently are just sort of, it's under advisement. They haven't moved on it.
Okay. And there's no timeline, on that?
No, yeah.
So they could sit on it for another 10 years.
Well,
I mean, if nothing changes, they don't have to make any kind of ruling then.
Well, there might be some concern because there's deadlines in the permit, yeah. So those decisions have to be made at some point.
Okay. All right, but nothing's been decided.
Yeah, nothing's decided yet.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, if not, thank you, Jesse. Really appreciated that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on in my executive director's report, the next two items I have, MK Soil Management Plan and the transition plan. I'm going to kind of combine these. because they overlap a lot. So as I mentioned, when I gave the Kahukumana report, MKSO has selected the planning consultant. And who and I are now working pretty in depth with MKSO, helping them develop their overall transition plan. A key component, as I mentioned, of the overall transition plan is the work plan that the consultants have put forward to actually develop their management plan. And in addition to the issues that we discussed at Kahukumana relative to their engagement early on in the consultant's work plan, Nahu and I have been emphasizing the need for MKSOA to take up several matters that are really kind of critical decisions that their planning consultant needs to know really in order to develop the management plan. The primary issue that we have been talking to them about from the very beginning is how MKSOA will hold its property interest for current UH managed lands. So as you know, under Act 255, they are conveyed significantly more authorities than UH has. Some of the authorities that normally sit with the land board are conveyed to them, with OCCL for conservation district permitting appear to sit with them. And then there's even some issues around the land use commission's authorities that are being transferred to them. The issue there is some of those execution on some of those authorities would only work if they held their property interests through what we think would have to be an executive order from the governor, as opposed to a general lease from the land board. Now, who and how that decision is made is unclear, but it's been pretty clear to us from the start, and I've been emphasizing this from the very beginning for the last 2 years, that they need to determine how they're going to hold their property interests, so their planning consultants have that as a framework to develop their plans. So for example, if they in fact are going to issue their leases directly to the observatories, their management plan has to talk about or cover how that leasing process is going to work. We don't have that authority in our current setup, so our management plans don't have to address those kinds of things. So that's one issue. A second issue, which we have discussed here on numerous occasions, is the issue of their oversight for conservation district permitting and enforcement of the rules. That is still an undetermined item that their planning consultant really needs some guidance on in order to develop their management plan. Again, there hasn't been a focus on that by MKSOA up until this point, and we're trying to make sure it gets input or gets added to their transition work plan ASAP. So we know here the importance of both of these issues. We've known them from the very beginning. And ideally, for the management consultant, the planning consultant they're hiring, both those decisions really should be made within the next 90 days. And they actually recognize that. But it's not clear how realistic making those kind of weighty decisions is going to be in the next 90 days. Another item of note is what I discussed previously, and that's the engagement with you folks during these first 90 days of the work plan. We will get more current or information and background about what their planning consultant intends to do in terms of engagement with our advisory groups. And we'll be sure to bring that forward as soon as we know if we need to schedule additional or special meetings. Next item dealing with or related to the transition plan is MKSOA has been asked to provide a briefing on their status as to this whole transition to a group of House leadership and House Water and Land Committee members, plus some other Hawaii Island legislators. That meeting is actually scheduled for tomorrow in Honolulu. And Nahu and I have been asked to attend that meeting with MKSOA management and their Milestones Permitted Interaction Group, their Milestones PIG. The meeting was called by Vice Speaker Linda Ichiyama, who is also a member of the Water and Land Committee in the House. Well, MKSOA has put together an agenda. It's not precisely clear what our elected officials, the legislators, are going to want to cover in this meeting. But there is an intent by MKSOA to present a draft of this overall transition plan that we've been working on to that group tomorrow at the meeting. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, MKSOA management also plans on presenting that timeline and plan next week to their MKSOA board at their regularly scheduled monthly meeting. So if everything sort of happens according to schedule, there should be more clarity around how they're looking at the sequencing and timing of the major components of all the work they need to get done in the next 36 months. I should say that the same group of legislators is also scheduled for an overnight visit August 11th and 12th. And Bill Stormont from MKSOA is coordinating that. There's a number of things they want to see and learn about our operations, but I would assume they will also be wanting to get further updated on the status of the whole transition. The status of where they're at, is starting to get some attention outside of our networks. And I think that's a good thing because we're trying to help them sort of pull all this information together into a cogent plan that sort of makes sense for everybody. Before I move on to some of the other matters I wanted to cover, any questions about MKSOA transition or their management plan development or anything like that?
No questions.
I have a question, Greg. So how long is it going to take for them to get a contract and get whoever they selected on board and working? Is that going to take 60 days, 90 days?
My understanding is that their goal was to have executed that contract before June 30th.
Yeah, yesterday, right?
Yeah. And I do not know whether that actually occurred or not. Because they wanted to encumber some of their current fiscal year 25 monies.
Yeah, which they wouldn't have, right? If they didn't sign it yesterday. And so, I mean, I guess, when you made your comment about the next 90 days, certain things have to happen. Is that really realistic?
I think it would be a hard lift, a difficult lift to get those decisions made in the next 90 days.
But without those decisions, they really can't. Well, I guess the question would be, without those decisions, can they even consider just adopting, existing plans that CMS already has in place.
Yeah, well, without those decisions, they can start their due diligence. That shouldn't affect that part of their work plan. On the matter of adopting our plans and our rules and our permits and all of that, that's still up for discussion. But what we're trying to do is kind of place, we're trying to strengthen our co-management relationship at the Joint Management Committee level. And part of that is our existing UH's existing plans and rules, for all intents and purposes, are our operating governing documents at the Joint Management Committee level. So in theory, there shouldn't be a need to adopt them during this transition period. But it would be helpful if there was some recognition, public recognition, formal recognition that that's how we're operating. So it doesn't quite answer all of your question, Roberta, but that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could kind of take it in chunks and then hopefully be able to tie it all together, you know, further down the line. But I would agree with you that the issue of, you know, do you get an executive order from the governor? You know, all of that stuff needs to be thought through because those are really big issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
The implications of transferring statutes, it's a difficult thing, not to say that it can't be done, but 90 days is a hard one when you're talking about moving some of the regulatory compliance issues from Land Use Commission or even the BLNR to to an advisory authority or an authority. It really has it's not just going to affect this situation. That sets a precedence, and that's what I kind of worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure Diana is
Cringing.
too.
There's always so much to cringe at.
Even if there was an executive order to move a number of these particular statutes, there's the implication ramifications are I just don't see how they can pick apart certain aspects of it. Maybe it is possible. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but if they don't have this their consultants looking at the basic administrative rules, structure, and design, we've got a problem.
After listening to it all, they're going to be late and they're not going to meet their deadlines. And I think that's the ultimate result of everything. And that just means that the university continues to manage until they meet their deadlines. And I suspect that the legislature will grant them extensions. And that's just the situation.
Yeah, it's clearly one of the things that they are probably going to need to look at. But the university also has some concerns about that because to the extent that we continue to have primary liability for all of this stuff, you know, it is supposed to be their responsibility come 2028. So they would have to agree before that. I think we would have to come to some kind of agreement about how liability was going to be handled. Any other questions on that? I do have a couple more items. Sorry, this is taking a little bit longer. I had an item down listed under ED report, Summit Communications Network. And this is just so that you folks have an idea of some of the complexity of issues that we're working through. And Mike, this is something that's gonna come to the asset transfer working group. We've been working at it at the Joint Management Committee level. So since the start of astronomy on Mauna Kea, UH has invested significantly in the development and management of a communication/data network to support science operations on the Mauna. Astronomy requires capacity to transmit high volumes of data internationally that is not supported by commercial internet providers. There's also specialized advanced security controls the university uses to protect breaches of the system. The future ownership and management of the network is an upcoming topic of discussion for the Asset Transfer Working Group. Because this asset requires some really specialized expertise and understanding to manage. The network itself is also the hardware is also critically linked through communication hubs at both Halepohaku and at the summit in what we call the summit lunchroom. Those are two critical hubs that link all of this stuff that allows the observatories to transmit their data to their home offices or wherever. We've briefed MK SOA management team on this matter at our JMC, our Joint Management Committee meetings. And we'll be discussing this with the Asset Working Group at an upcoming meeting. I'm just providing this information here as background to some of the complexity of the issues that still need to work through as we evaluate what and how we transfer and assign ownership of assets. Clearly, there will be a need to negotiate some form of new agreements for the management of the system, no matter what UH and MK SOA decide on how it should be held and managed going forward. In our discussions at the Joint Management Committee meeting, I think their management team understands that this is probably something that is beyond their bandwidth to take on, but it's not something that's been discussed at their board level. Just more details around some of the complexity and the amount of work that still needs to be done during this transition process. And then the last thing I had real quick is CMS is hosting an overnight site visit for DLNR leadership on July 29th and 30th. This request came from DLNR, specifically Michael Kane at the Office of Coastal and Conservation Lands. I'm working with Michael on the agenda. The group includes Land Board Chair Don Chang and several of her division administrators. I think there's 12 of them altogether. They want to be briefed on our CMS programs, most specifically our stewardship programs, resource management programs. But we'll also be talking to them about CMS's partnership with the various DLNR divisions that we work closely with. And they also would like an update on the status of our transition with MK SOA. So I'm working with MK SOA's management team on developing some briefing material about the transition process itself. And hopefully by the end of the month, we'll be able to walk them through an updated transition timeline if everything goes well. So that's just for your FYI. It's been a long time since we've had DLNR up on the Mauna, actually hosting them for something like this. So I think it's a good thing, and I'm glad that they requested it.
What's the date again, Greg?
July 29th and 30th.
Thanks.
And that concludes my executive director's report. Sorry it took so long, but we had a lot to cover.
Right, going back to the Summit Communications Network, is the big question, what will replace CMS in managing that network?
No, it's CMS, other than being an account center for the monies that the observatories pay to support that network. The system is actually managed by IFA and ITS, Information Technology Services at UH. They share responsibility in the development and actual management of the system. ITS at UH system level actually provides, a lot of the regulatory and data security and sort of the outward facing connections of this network to the rest of the world. And then IFA's IT lead or director, he's on site sort of working, troubleshooting, upgrading the system on site. It's kind of a shared thing. But we do manage a cost center that the observatories pay into to help.
So the question is, how will, can MKSO replicate that in some manner? Or how will they do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually is a similar issue as there's some other cost centers that and functions that we administratively house for the MKOs, such as the weather center. So there's some other functions like that that we need to discuss with MKSO about UH or some entity representing the the observatories would continue to manage. Any other questions? If not,
It
thank
gets
you.
more and more
Chair.
complex, Greg. The more we listen, it's like, oh my goodness. The first part that you're dealing with sounds more like a piece of cake than this, what you just brought up. Oh my gosh, because MKSOA has no one with that type of expertise.
They're gonna have to develop it. Yeah. They're gonna have to develop that expertise or acquire it in some manner.
I mean, when you think of it, what UH does in managing that system, it's not exactly like it, but almost like it's not just IT, right? You're almost like a utility almost.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's hardware and software.
Right.
Is JD aware of this particular issue?
We've talked about it with DeFries and his team, but it hasn't gone outside of that yet.
Okay, as long as he's aware.
I don't think they're inclined to want to take this on, but like I said, it needs to be discussed with their board.
I mean, you can't not take it, right?
Well, UH could keep it. They could ask us to manage it.
Or fee.
Would be icing on the cake if that's what ends up happening, Greg.
Oh my
But I
God.
think on the short run, that might be necessary.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they'll have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, the skill sets that are required to do this is not insignificant.
There's a ton of highly specialized, federally required security built into the UH system that you will not get through Hawaiian Telecom or some commercial third party. This is a custom comm system. I cannot foresee anybody other than UH realistically just keeping it somehow working to sustain it with MKSOA in a management sense in the background, but not technically responsible for it.
Oh man. I think that's probably going to have to be the solution because, they're not wealthy enough to be like, what's his name that's trying to just hire away all the top AI people in the world. I mean, we're talking sophisticated operations, right? And knowledge. Oh boy.
Have you talked to Ben Fudo yet? about
No,
this?
I gotta talk to him first.
Okay,
To tell you the truth, we didn't understand ourselves, the complexity of what's involved, so we had to educate ourselves first. And Doug's folks and ITS's folks were thoroughly successful in confusing us. It took us several meetings to understand how all of this works.
okay.
The more I hear, oh my gosh. Oh, well, you'll keep us posted on everything.
Yeah.
And I think we should move forward to the agenda item.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll take up the first one, which is IRTF's site plan application for geotechnical analysis. Joy will provide background. You have all of the materials, site proposals. And then we have folks from IRTF here to answer any questions as well. The only thing I'll say before I turn it over to Joy is that there's some site erosion issues that IRTF needs to address on their site. And this is a key component to helping them develop what that plan should be. So I'll turn it over to Joy and maybe you can walk them through highlights of the proposal.
Yep. Good evening and thank you, board members and guests. Sarah, if we could pull up the PDF for this proposal. This is the IRTF geotechnical analysis. CMS is submitting a site plan application on behalf of IRTF to DLNR and Land Division. As Director Chun explained, the problem is that the IRTF site is experiencing erosion on the eastern face of their slope. You know, they sit on Pu'uhauoki, and so that eastern side is eroding away. And if that continues, IRTF will not be able to conduct their needed mirror maintenance. They won't be able to take the mirror off the summit where it goes for maintenance. Also, it'll affect other deliveries and employee access to the site. So this is something they really need to address to comply with their sublease, with the general lease, as well as just general operations of their site. So what they need to do is they're looking at doing some soil sampling via drilling, and of the contractors or the bid that they put out, they have selected a contractor that is proposing the minimally invasive drilling. It will be drilling at 2 sites using a 4-inch to 6-inch drill bit, going down at least 15 feet below surface, up until the drill is refused or it can no longer drill. And so they're looking at getting about, I think it was nearly 16 cubic feet of sample. That soil and rock will be analyzed for various characteristics to see what the soil can support, and that will guide their future erosion mitigation plans. So at this point, the proposal has gone through the Environment Committee. There were a couple of concerns, including whether IRTF and the contractor will consider all possible sources of erosion or possible causes of erosion. IRTF has confirmed that will be done. And some of you may also be familiar with the geophysicist Don Thomas. There was a question from the EC whether he would be interested in looking at the samples after the contractor's work. CMS has contacted Dr. Thomas, and unfortunately, it's not to a deep enough level for him, so he has declined to study the samples. And so it is standard practice that materials like this would be returned as long as they're undamaged and uncontaminated. So all of the sample that is in that returnable state will be brought back to the IRTF site and put back in the ground. Also, as Executive Director Chun had mentioned, this was considered or formally consulted with Kahuku Mauna last week. and they are in support of the project. They had no objections. And let's see, was there anything else? Just the IRTF is in its 46th year of operation, so it I guess would be expected that they have some wear and tear like this. We also have with us the site manager, Chris Yamasaki, and maybe if there's anything that needs to be added, or I forgot.
You did well.
Gonna add anything?
No, and basically she summed it up. We need to adjust the erosion because there is no way that we can service our mirror. And one good example is we service our septic system, and the driver of the truck did not feel comfortable making the turn around the building. And the truck that carries our mirror is bigger. So it's a definite problem for us.
So eventually, this will come back. The work that IRTF will need to do as a result of the soil analysis will come back for a full committee's consultation. They're looking at adding a bunch of surface area, possibly with a retaining wall, but that remains to be determined for sure. With the rest of the packet that you have before you, Sarah, scrolling through it, right there is our standard conditions for projects. The packet also includes the proposal and an exemption statement that IRTF does not need to do an environmental assessment or environmental impact statement for this project. And also the site plan application is contained in there. So if there are any questions, we can address those.
So there were some photos in the project proposal as well. So that gives you an idea. I think page 9 and then page 13 or something like that. It gives you an idea of sort of location and whatnot. You go to page 13. Can you go to page 13?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. On this one here, you see the proposed coring sites. You see there at the bottom of the building there, that road is where Chris is saying due to erosion, it's getting pretty narrow.
Yes.
And the trucks have to go around the building to that backside to remove the mirror as well as to service the septic system. So they do recognize and have a need to have to address the erosion issue in general. Any questions? So this is a type B project because we are going to be required to get a site plan approval. So that means it would require a formal recommendation from this body to move on to the chancellor.
Okay, any questions?
No, thank you for the very clear explanation.
So can I move to recommend approval moving forward on this project?
I'll second it.
Okay. So moved and second. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
All right.
Unanimous approval of the members in attendance.
Thank you, Maunakea Management Board members. Appreciate that. Okay, so the next item is debris removal monitoring and prevention plan. Under our comprehensive management action IM5, we're required to develop a specific plan of how we handle debris, waste, trash on the Mauna. That has several different components. Justin and his team developed this plan. He's not here able to join us tonight. So I asked Joy if she would cover this plan and answer any questions you may have. Because this plan is part of our CMP, which is formally approved by this body. Adoption of this component of the CMP would also require a formal recommendation from MKMB tonight. So Joe, you want to talk about the debris plan a little bit?
Oh, I'm very excited to talk about this blockbuster agenda item. Actually, this debris plan, we have had, it's been in place informally for several years now. Although things like the ranger trash routes, the actual routes might change over time, just depending on where the trash is, what they observe, et cetera, et cetera. Excuse me. The purpose, as Director Greg has mentioned, is to address the need for an infrastructure maintenance action item to develop this plan. Its purpose is to protect the resources and also to allow for stewardship by the public. We know that litter is bad. It's significant or our CMP identifies that litter is a significant enough concern that when you look at the CMP actions, there are at least a dozen actions related to litter. And so through the plan, it identifies that litter poses a threat to historic resources, cultural resources. It can offend practitioners and also just the general public. And also what's not stated in the plan is it really just looks bad, I think, and reflects poorly on management, whether we intend it or not. It can also damage the natural resources. These are the biological, hydrological, ecological, geological resources. That's through either direct contact, toxic leaching. It can also support alien species. And the plan directs us to prevent, monitor, and remove trash. Prevention would be through education. That's mainly done by the rangers at the entranceway. It's also carried out by staff at the visitor station. We have some information on our website reminding visitors to be trash responsible. It also is formalized in our administrative rules 2026-24 about prohibiting, prohibitions on litter and general sanitation as well. Monitoring, we know, is carried out primarily by rangers. They have a daily ranger report where they log everything that they see and they pick up. This is also tabulated at the end of the week. Their totals for trash can vary between 10 pounds in an average week to like 30 plus after snow play events, when we have hundreds of people all over the place leaving behind sleds or makeshift sleds and other recreational activities or recreational stuff. The rangers also patrol for trash at Lake Waiau, which is not our jurisdiction, but we do it as part of a cooperative agreement with DLNR DOFA. And let's see, removal. Removal is through trash bins that are emptied and cleaned as needed. We have to be careful to not do more harm than necessary to the resources in the process of picking up this trash. And also we have to try to maintain employee safety. Some of the places where trash accumulates are at the bottom of very steep pu'us or in remote areas. And we have to assess whether it's safe to go pick up that trash and worth it. The debris plan also covers additional recommendations for trash control. And it does cover trash control through our standard project approval conditions, which require that organic material be removed daily from construction sites. We have construction best management practices that will vary by project. And observatories are also responsible for a perimeter. So within about 25 yards of each facility, their staff is responsible for picking up any and all rubbish that they see, whether they create it or not. Typically, it would be visitors leaving behind stuff or stuff getting blown around on the mountain. And let's see, just a couple of other notes. The debris plan was reviewed by the Environment Committee last month. There were a couple of concerns, such as whether cameras could be installed to help control trash. That's kind of tricky if it's at a remote site, which is where we do see some trash, like at the parking lots 1 and 2, and also batch plant. Then there's an issue of providing power to those cameras. We would also need to have an idea of when an incident occurred in order to pinpoint it in the footage to see who might be causing the trash. Some other concerns were, let's see, that maybe it's people such as hunters or other people who go off trail who are creating the trash. And CMS reminded the EC that hunting is an allowed activity, and it's kind of protected actually by DLNR. And so we also don't have any authority over the forest reserve or the natural area reserve where hunting is allowed under DLNR rules. So there's not much we can do about that. I think that's all I have for the debris plan.
Okay, good, thank you. Any questions about our debris removal and monitoring plan?
Is it still actively done? The sites are inspected on a monthly basis?
The rangers do biannual CDUP inspections, so they go up twice a year. And they do inspect for trash around every facility, including HP. So we police ourselves.
Okay,
Monthly, I'm not sure what would be done monthly, but really rangers carry the bulk of the monitoring responsibilities for trash.
okay, thank you.
Can I ask a general question about how this works? Because I think this is the first of these that I've seen. It's at the end, there's a section on recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the recommendations to?
Those I think are for us, CMS. But in some cases, we would turn around and say, okay, everyone else follow these too.
Okay. You see what I'm asking? Yeah.
But some of the recommendations, for example, if you're gonna do a major project on at your site, as part of your project plan, I mean, CSO did this as part of the decommissioning plan. They had to have a whole plan on how they want to remove debris. So it includes that sort of thing as well. So some of these recommendations would inform our daily kind of ongoing operations, and some of them would inform the special projects as well.
Other things like a staff training program, I think that would be mostly for CMS staff, but some of that might go in or might apply toward a future orientation for all workers on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This plan's been a long time coming, I think, and no doubt about it. I think we just need to make this happen, and I would propose that we accept the debris plan.
Do you make a motion, please, Julie?
Yes, I will make a motion that we accept the debris removal plan.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Diana. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of accepting the plan as submitted, raise your hand or say aye.
All right.
Unanimous approval to recommend to Bonnie Irwin. Okay.
Ahua lost power, so she's listening in on her phone, just so you know.
Okay. I lost
Okay,
power this morning.
No.
Okay, that's all the agenda items on the agenda. Just the next item is executive session.
Yeah, Chair, I would like to make a motion that we move into executive session to consult with our attorney on some issues pertaining to our powers and liabilities regarding MKSOA and our joint management relationship.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. All in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unanimous approval. So we will now move to executive session and then reconnect with the general public meeting after it's concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.